Hey, what's going on, Cashflow Hackers? It's Chris with Life 180. I got Robert Reichert here. We're in South Carolina at his office. If you're not familiar with Robert yet, he is the top IUL litigation attorney in the country. Has done amazing things. We've been building a really awesome relationship. I've just been having a lot of fun with you here today.
Yeah, it's been great.
Meeting with your team and going through all this stuff. And so, wanted to do this video. Ultimately, I guess the best way to put it for me is like I've been really frustrated by the state of the IUL space, right? I wrote my book, IUL Exposed. Specifically, I want to talk in this video about Doug Andrew. And I guess part of this is I did a video, I'm gonna say it's like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was, I did this, and listen, I'm a total hack when it comes to like understanding law compared to an attorney, right? But I did a review video on Doug, and I went through all the legal stuff that I could find online, that I could just do a Google search, you know, Doug Andrew lawsuit, Doug Andrew litigation, security, you know, like whatever. And I just did a review on that video, or like I did a review video of all that stuff, basically being like, guys, like, come on, like all this stuff is out there.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like, how are you getting away with it? And I'm not gonna lie, like the frustrating part to me is over the past 4 years since I've made that video, and when I made that video, I wasn't licensed. You know, I didn't have my IMO. I wasn't doing what I'm doing now. I was just like, at that point in time, I was just creating content to educate people and try to protect people against something that I knew was nefarious, ultimately.
Yeah.
And since launching our agency and since we've started like really building what we're building, what's become really frustrating to me is just seeing him get away with it continually. Watching his following grow from 15,000 to 192,000 as of this morning when I'm looking at it.
Right.
You know, on YouTube, and seeing that he's like, just feeling like he's getting away with it. And me talking to agents that are just like really beating the drum of the Doug Andrew song, saying like, as long as you properly structure and fund the policy, you're gonna be good. And I was losing a little bit of hope, like feeling like I'm fighting this fight. And honestly, until I met you, and like I felt like so alone in fighting this fight. You know what I mean?
Welcome to the club of two.
I know, right? And so it's nice to have a partner in this, but you know, I was losing hope that like, man, this guy's gonna get away with it, you know? And you were able to illuminate and give me hope. And today, coming and visiting, I mean, you know, we've had conversations about it, but you know, you shared with me that there's pending litigation and that there's a lot of things in the works. And so I wanted to do this video, and listen, this isn't about me attacking Doug for the sake of attacking Doug. That is not the purpose of this, and I want to make that really, really clear. Everything that I do about this, and Doug happens to be kind of in the middle of my crosshairs, just because he's the one who I think is the worst perpetrator as far as misrepresentation of how IUL is positioned and sold, right? And he coaches more agents and does more stuff. And so I would love to hear from you as somebody who's been intimately involved in some of the legal background. You've deposed Doug, you've deposed his sons, you've deposed, you know, like all this stuff. So can you kind of go into whatever level you are comfortable or able to go into about all that?
Yeah, so I mean, he was one of the first big IUL promoters that I met when I first got into IUL litigation. Obviously I didn't know who he was.
Right.
And candidly, when I learned about his company, you know, back then it was Paramount Financial Services doing business as Live Abundant. That was their sort of marketing trade name.
Sure.
And I kind of chuckled, okay, live abundant. I mean, I get it, live abundantly.
Yeah.
It kind of goes into what I have found in IUL world is the big shops, the big promoters, the big sellers, the big educators. It has a very sort of religious feel to it.
Sure.
You know, he's Live Abundant. There was another guy that was Hidden Wealth Solutions.
Okay.
There are others that have funny little, you know, trade names, but it's all about, we're going to unlock something for you that is a secret to only the wealthy.
Totally.
And so we got a couple of Live Abundant cases back starting in 2018. And we ended up, I think we were well into 200 plus at one time.
Wow.
That have resolved, except for we've got about 80 pieces of active litigation against Live Abundant, Paramount, and their producers, because it was essentially its own little small insurance agency.
Sure.
And I've deposed Doug, I've deposed his sons Aaron, I've deposed Imran. Learned a lot about his, back then it was called the Transformative Wealth Strategy. Now he calls it Laser Financial. But the most surprising thing to me about Doug was he's not even licensed to sell insurance.
Right.
It was shocking. Like I took his I mean, obviously I worked a lot and understood a lot going into that deposition, but he actually turned in his license in 2006.
Yep.
Like he hasn't sold a life insurance product in almost 20 years.
Right.
But he is probably the most prolific promoter of Index Universal Life, particularly Index Universal Life as a means of tax-free retirement planning. I think he calls it max-funded, tax-advantaged retirement income strategies.
Okay.
And he will TERFA, DERFA, 7700, TAMRA, and 7702 and 72E to death.
Yep.
Which is one of the things that bothers me is he knows his stuff. Like he really, really knows his stuff. But in my cases, in the cases we have pending in litigation, those, I mean, I got into those cases against those agents because they were selling a product called Future Income Payments, FIP, which ended up being a Ponzi scheme. But what they were doing is they were selling a strategy where mostly you would reposition retirement income, qualified retirement accounts into this FIP product and park your money over there as a self-directed IRA.
Okay.
And over a period of usually 5 to 7, maybe 10 years, depending on the strategy of the IUL, you would deploy a chunk of that capital. Think of it as they called it the parking lot, from the parking lot into the IUL.
Okay.
And what really bothered me is there were a number of agents at Live Abundant that we sued that not only recommended that strategy, but they recommended that customers of theirs go get home equity lines and use that money to fund IULs. And I even had a couple where they recommended reverse mortgages.
Okay.
So by the time these clients came to me, they were upside down on a home equity loan. The FIP Ponzi scheme had collapsed, so their parking lot had evaporated.
Yep.
And the money they had deployed into these IULs and they were using to take out policy loans to pay for these problems, their IULs were collapsing, and they were going to get hit with tax problems from the policy loans they took when the policy lapsed. So it was like this just unbelievable storm of horrible financial mismanagement. And so at the same time, Live Abundant agents were also selling another product called Woodbridge, which also turned out to be a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
And so there were a couple of securities licensed individuals that worked for Live Abundant. The SEC came in, stripped them of their licenses, and proactively said that the SEC issued an order against Paramount. In fact, I've got it because I was just looking at it. They issued an order against Paramount doing business as Live Abundant as an administrative proceeding that basically said, in light of the Woodbridge and FIP issues, Live Abundant is barred from association with any broker, dealer, investment advisor, municipal securities dealer, municipal advisor, transfer agent, or nationally recognized statistical rating organization. So basically, they could not transact any business with anyone that held a securities license.
Okay. That's
because the SEC was so concerned about the activities that were running through Live Abundant back then, they said, we got to put some guardrails on you. And so I figured, all right, well, I've still got this active litigation against these guys. There was a receivership in FIP. They had these SEC problems. I figured that was the end of Live Abundant and Doug Andrew.
How could somebody sustain going through all
look,
that,
if
right?
I did that,
you'd be done. You'd
honestly,
shut it down.
this is no joke. I would not be allowed to walk into a law firm and clean the garbage cans.
Right.
Because in the legal world, if you've been disbarred, you cannot perform any function at all for a law firm, even
Really?
janitorial services.
Okay.
Seriously.
Wow.
It's that strict.
I did not know that.
And then all of a sudden, because I do IUL work, I get served a lot of content, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I would wake up on a Saturday morning, have a cup of coffee, turn on YouTube to listen to some music, and there's Doug Andrew talking about max-funded life insurance retirement strategies.
Like, I thought we'd been through this already.
And I'm like, there's no way. What is this? Got to be an old video. And I look, and it's massive. It's like you said, he's up to almost 200,000 subscribers.
Literally 10x his channel.
And apparently they've rebranded as Laser Financial,
Laser
Three-Dimensional Wealth. They have new agents, or maybe even the same agents. I don't know.
Well, what he's doing is he has become the foundational training individual in his company.
Yes.
He's created training programs where he charges monthly to agents, and he sells like one-off seminars. He does live seminars. He gets paid to come in and speak to like World Financial Group, GFI.
Correct.
And so that's what he does. He's a personality now.
He is. He's a big personality in the business, and he's a big personality just in general, because obviously I've spent a lot of time with him. I sat across from him about this close for a whole day deposing him. And what bothered me about so much of it is, my business, these guys are selling the dream, right? They're selling this max-funded, tax-advantaged life retirement strategy. But I get to see the people when they've fallen apart. And I distinctly remember, it was in Utah, so it was a lot of LDS members. And I remember I spent a lot of time in Salt Lake City, and I just remember meeting with this guy. I won't say his name, but he was a client of mine, still a client of mine. And I remember him looking at me saying, I can't provide for my family. I've had to go to my church and ask for the charity of others to be able to buy groceries to feed my children. Because I put all my money into these IULs. I was convinced to take out a home equity loan. I've almost lost my house. And the fact that not only can this company rebrand itself and still go out there and sell IULs as a tax retirement income strategy, what is stunning to me, I think of it as a lawyer, and I mean, we practice law with a healthy sense of paranoia, right?
Of course.
Because we don't want to make mistakes.
Sure.
We deal with people, in my case with IULs, we're talking about millions of dollars at any given time of retirement money that we're trying to get back, and we don't want to screw it up, right?
Right.
And I think about that and go, all right, these agents have been kicked off the platform of this IUL insurance company. They've been kicked off the platform of this IUL insurance company. They got a SEC order against them. They've got securities and insurance commissioners in Utah, Idaho, and other states hammering them. But there is an IUL carrier out there that says, you know what? Because you sell so much product, we will happily contract with you, which is to me insane.
Totally. What do you say to people though? Because I've had a lot of people respond, because I've created quite a bit of content. I've created reaction videos. I've done reviews of his Laser Fund book. I've done a ton of info and just like trying to expose, the truth behind what's going on here. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me and tell me I'm the crazy one, because anybody can get sued for anything. And it doesn't mean he's guilty, and it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean, so what's your feedback on, your experience with him specifically?
Well, in these cases, the first thing we do, one of the many things we do in an IUL case is there's the illustration, there's the annual reports, there's also in force, right?
Sure, of course.
And so 99.9% of the cases we had against the Live Abundant agents and still have were retirement strategies. So that means some level of policy loans. So one of the many things we do is we get an in-force illustration. Because I had,
naturally,
honestly, I know exactly what you're saying. Sometimes I feel like a lunatic. Like, why am I Chicken Little saying the sky is falling? And these guys are all over TikTok and YouTube and, driving rental.
And you feel like you're
rental Ferraris.
exactly.
Wearing rental Patek Philippe's and or some of them actually are making enough money to do it.
Yeah.
And I would have clients that say, look, there's no way that, again, Doug doesn't sell anything. He's just an educator.
Right.
But the agents, because they spend so much time and they endear themselves to them and they trust them, they knew the Ponzi scheme was bad, but they wouldn't believe the IUL was bad. And they were like, this is going to work. This is my retirement.
Right.
And so I would say, well, here, we're going to call the carrier. You're going to ask for an enforced illustration. It would come in, and they would see like they were in year 4 or 5 of the program, and it was going to lapse in year 7. And I mean, I've watched grown men cry. I've watched grown men want to do physical violence to people when they see that, because they have literally put all of their money into this strategy, and when they get the real material and see how it works in the real world, it evaporates.
To be fair, too, he's not licensed to sell. He's doing the education, but his family is.
Correct. Yes.
And like, so this is just, it's part, in my opinion, it's part of the game. He's creating the content, he's the personality, and now, because I think Doug, I don't know how old he is, but he's getting up there, and whatever, obviously don't wish ill on anybody as far as age and whatever, but his sons are now starting to do more content. His sons are starting to be on the channel more. But over that period of time, the whole play has been he creates the leads, he pushes them to his kids and other agents that are on the team, and it's not like they're not making money. And if you're gonna,
they made a lot of money.
Maybe I shouldn't say this. You can slap me legally if you want. But like, if you're gonna tell me that Doug is creating the leads and he's the owner of the company and his kids are selling, that he's not getting some sort of compensation for all that, like nobody know. But like, I'm gonna use 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah.
Deductive reasoning.
I don't think he's doing it out of the benevolence of his heart.
Right, exactly.
I mean, Doug's a capitalist, and I don't fault him for that at all.
No.
What I fault him for is I think he's smart enough to know that most of these strategies, as they are designed, are not going to work.
Right.
And that is why we have brought litigation against so many of those agents, and we'll continue to do so.
What do you see, like, because I created the IUL challenge, where I'm willing to give Doug $10,000 if he could just show me one that works, and he won't come to me and show it to me, but he did a video showing one where, like, apparently it wasn't 10 years old, but it was like 8 or 9 years old, and it was good. I personally don't trust the video. That's just my take, because I just don't trust him.
Had any policy loans come out?
Yeah, no policy loans have come out.
Well, I mean, that's the whole strategy, though, is policy loans.
But even that, like, it's one of those things where my mindset is, he's sold, how many policies do you think he's sold over the years? Like, based on what you've seen?
Oh gosh, I mean, I litigated around 250 policies.
Of his?
Of
Live Abundant, his company.
I mean, my guess is, thousands.
So how is it that an attorney at your level has litigated 250 policies against the company that he's the head of?
Right.
That his philosophy is certainly entrenched with. How is it, if his way is supposedly supposed to work, that many people are getting litigated? And I ask this because most people who are in his camp are going to say, well, they didn't fund it properly. They stopped paying. Like, how many of those lawsuits happened because people made mistakes in funding, or they ran out of money and they couldn't fund it, versus they funded it and they followed the plan and it just didn't work?
Well, in every case we bring, they followed the plan designed by the agent that sold it to them.
So 250 situations, basically.
I mean, if you go ask a person off the street, explain an index universal life, they're going to look at you like, what are you talking about?
Right.
I mean, as you know, this is one of the most complicated, I think it is the most complicated insurance product in the marketplace, and I think that's by design.
By design, and I think it's the most complicated, sold as a very simplistic solution, and that's one of the biggest parts of the problem.
Well, I say all the time, they sell the illustration and not the product, actually.
Right.
They sell a hope and a dream that is built in this illustration that is pie in the sky if everything works perfectly.
But they tell you that it's conservative.
Yeah, but that's nonsense. It's not. I mean, they could
Sure.
design a conservative illustration. You and I both know
They
that.
could. Sure.
There's multiple levers you can pull inside of that whole chassis, which will show a super conservative IUL product.
Yep.
But the problem is no one's going to buy it as as an alternative to a 401k or a Roth IRA.
Correct.
Because it's not going to illustrate as well as it does when they load it up with the high AG49
Yeah.
and all the little performance factors they tweak inside the product.
What are you seeing? You mentioned a couple things like off camera in regards to insurance companies, like the illustrations not having good faith, and then and about agents in general, where they get in trouble is by positioning IUL as a retirement advice, as income advice, as
an investment.
Like the strategic rollout,
right?
As Doug Andrew likes to talk about. Like, can you talk about that a little bit? Like the danger of that philosophy that he uses as a foundation to a lot of what he does.
Because again, if you watch those videos and you listen to all the marketing material, and I've sadly I've purchased and watched hundreds of hours of videos until my ears bled.
Yeah.
Look. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about because he does.
He knows what he's talking about.
And to be honest with you, I could grab the same stuff and walk into a retirement home and I could sell all IULs all day long.
All day long.
All day long. Because I know also a lot about it and I know exactly what to say. But I also would not be able to.
You have an ethical code.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to live with myself, you know? Because
Exactly.
I would know that I'm sitting across from someone that I'm probably destroying their down the road retirement plans.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what drives those guys to do what they do, if they have convinced themselves that this really will work. I mean, I have often said, look, Doug particularly, there's a couple other agents around the country who have been in the IUL game.
Yeah.
I know at least since 2010 because I've seen illustrations sold going back to 2010.
Okay.
That means we have a 15-year runway now.
Yeah.
I would love, I mean, Doug can just put it on his YouTube channel.
Sure.
Show me one, and because they typically sell a 7-pay.
Where they've done income. He does a 5-pay typically.
Well, they used to be 7-pay because
Yeah.
of AG49 rules and the 7-pay MEC test and all that stuff. But a lot of ours were 7-pays.
Okay.
Or it would depend, you know, their agents, Live Abundant agents, like a lot of them, they would have this plan where they would meet with you and do a full financial exam and figure out how much capital they could deploy from other sources into the IUL. But I would love to see, you know, we're in year 15, call it, of the retirement sale.
Sure.
I mean, that's when I first saw the first ones were sold around 2010. I would love to see any agent in the country show me one that was a 5-pay or 7-pay. Premiums have stopped, and you're not putting any more premium in.
Yep.
And the insured has taken policy loans for the tax-free retirement.
Yeah.
And the policy is not in danger of lapse.
It's not going to happen.
I mean, I would join you. I'd give $10,000 to.
All right.
I'd give it to the Albrecht Center in Aiken, South Carolina, which is a no-kill rescue shelter.
Okay.
If someone would show me that.
All right. Well, I mean, nobody's going to be able to show it, but.
And listen, I have sued around the country. I've probably at this point sued 50+ insurance agents, right?
Okay.
And if that analysis existed, I would have seen it in one of my litigation.
100%.
Because
they'd bring it to the table.
They would have said, no, look, these actually do work.
Right.
This one didn't work for this specific reason, but you're wrong about this and you're wrong about me.
Well, that's fair. And you've deposed Doug and his family and the people that work at Live Abundant and that whole deal. And it's like, if they had a successful story, they would have brought it to you. You would think, common sense would say, they would want to defend themselves and like build a case for themselves, being like, okay, maybe this situation's bad, but look at what we're doing. It works most of the time.
Well, think about it this way, right? What do we see now? What do we see day to day? We see on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook. We see smart boards. We see whiteboards, right? We see people writing. We see numbers. You know what we don't see? We don't see them holding up an in-force illustration on a product they sold 8 years ago and say, look how Chris's IUL is performing. I'm going to bring Chris in, talk to us about it. Chris, tell us how you've taken out tax-free loans for your retirement.
Yeah.
Because guess what? If they did, that agent would sell 10x of what they're selling.
100%.
And
100%.
let me ask you, you're a life insurance guy.
Yeah, totally.
If you were selling IUL and you have a big YouTube channel, and it worked, wouldn't you bring in testimonials?
100%. Like we're doing our first live event, and in fact, like we've got a client that we rescued from IUL and brought over to Whole Life, and he's using it to buy real estate and doing our whole cash flow hacking process. He's so excited. And it's already gone so well. He's coming to speak live at our event.
Look,
you know, like, and we're going to record it and share it because those examples are key. That's real life. I always say life doesn't exist on a spreadsheet. You know, and that's it.
I watch hundreds of marketing videos. I watch, because people send it to me all the time.
I know, it's hard. It's hard. You have to. I know. Same with me. I get
these
blasted.
Clowns.
Totally.
You know, I watched one last night that said, literally the guy claimed on TikTok, your money is in the S&P 500 in an IUL with no downside risk, upside cap.
We just watched Doug
Which
Andrews.
is not true.
We just watched Doug Andrew on a short clip say that you could get
11.5%
whatever
year over year.
Year over year in an IUL
Which if that
for
were the
10
case,
years.
I would call Doug right now and I'd give him all my money. I would.
Totally. 100%.
But here's the deal. I've watched hundreds and hundreds of marketing videos.
Yeah.
You know what I've never seen in a marketing video for IUL?
An actual testimonial?
I've never seen a real live testimonial.
Right.
Ask yourselves, why?
Right.
All these guys and gals on TikTok, because there's, oh my God, hundreds and hundreds. Why are there no real clients showing real in-force illustrations? Saying, look, I put 100 grand in, I've taken 300 out, and I've still got 2 million in death benefit.
I mean,
I can show you a million illustrations to show you that.
I could show you illustrations that are new, but not in force.
Correct.
Like, you know what I mean?
I can show you sales material.
And listen, one of the things that I always say is that, like, in a vacuum, IUL could potentially work if everything goes perfectly right.
It all has to go perfect, though.
Perfectly, right? And, you know, it just doesn't work that way. And then
life is not perfect.
Exactly. And the insurance company doesn't control the variables, and what happens is those variables change inevitably 100% of the time.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, the insurance company is going to look after themselves, not you, the policyholder.
And what bothered me so much about Live Abundant, and I think you know, they're the market leaders, so a lot of what I see in these agents around the country when I litigate against them, I see little bits and pieces of Doug and his, you know, I use it all the time, the term wealth architect. That was a term Live Abundant used. And I remember the first time I got an IUL case against them, and I saw an email to one of my clients, and the guy called himself a wealth architect. I'm like, what is a wealth architect? There's no such thing.
Right.
Because you know why? They don't want to say I'm an insurance agent.
They don't want to say they're an insurance agent, and they can't say that they're a financial advisor.
Correct. So they imply that there's something more. And now, you know, it's the terms retirement specialist, financial consultant.
Right.
I mean, I could hop on TikTok right now.
Oh yeah.
Pick out 20 of them that are made up names that mean nothing. And some of them do straight up call themselves a financial advisor, which is
fiduciary. I've even seen
fiduciary. Well, and there's some goofy. You can pay like $800 to some organization and become a certified fiduciary of something.
Really?
Oh yeah, because I've just got a case against a guy who holds himself out, and I'm like, what is this? Because
that's insane.
It's meant to be like a CFP, which is a really hard exam.
Yeah.
But this place, you just pay $100. It's kind of like being an online preacher.
You get an online degree.
You just pay.
Totally.
You know, if I want to marry my friends,
sense.
I just get online, do a quick class, pay $100, and I'm now I'm an ordained minister.
Now you're a fiduciary.
But yeah, I mean that stuff bothers me, and I mean for anybody watching this, look, that's the first question. If someone is telling you you should move money out of a Roth or an IRA or a 401k or some type of qualified plan into an IUL, the first question to them is, what licenses do you hold? And they say, I'm an insurance agent, and that's it. Get up. Because the only thing they can sell you is insurance. They cannot, as these companies like to say, create a holistic financial plan for you.
Right.
Because that involves stocks, bonds, mutual funds, index
Sure.
funds,
Yep.
real estate,
Yep.
cash.
Mm-hmm.
You can't sell something that you're not authorized to sell. So that's red flag number one.
Mm-hmm.
And if they tell you that an IUL is better than a 401k,
That's the key.
his IUL is better than your Roth,
That's
and
the
you
key.
should move your money from it, that's also another red flag.
And I think it's a big deal because, like, you know, there could be all these philosophical debates on where you should save, what does a holistic financial plan look like, what's good, what's bad, what's not, like whatever. But at the end of the day, like when you know it's all just geared to just try to get you into an IUL or get you into like any product, and that's just what the objective is, and that product is going to be the solution to all your problems. Like that's the problem.
Look,
there is no product that's going to solve your problems.
At the end of the day, laser financial or three-dimensional wealth or whatever it's called now.
Misfortune.
Yeah,
Once back
it
in
used
the
to
day.
be called misfortune.
Misfortune.
And I asked them in a deposition, I said, at the end of the day, your business model is to get people to purchase an index universal life product.
Totally.
And fairly, they said yes. I mean,
Yeah.
that is what, and they don't hide from that, they don't run from that, and that's fine. And if that's what they want to sell, that's all, you know, that they have to live with that, and they'll have to deal with people like me down the road when they collapse. But if that's the deal, and someone's recommending to you that an IUL is the be-all, end-all, and should be your entire portfolio, that is a red warning, flashing light, red flag.
What would you say to the agents who are being coached by Doug, who are believers, who have drank the Doug Andrew Kool-Aid, who believe in the IUL because of his training and have been in it for maybe 3 to 5 or 6 years, because that's when this is really built up,
Yeah.
right? Like, but they haven't been around long enough, and they believe. I mean, they believe, right? They believe that it's working.
They drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, look, statistics and proof don't lie. They've been in business long enough. I would say, you know, let's take a random sample of 20 customers whose IUL is older than 8 years, and let's get in-force illustrations and include some that have policy loans, and let's look at the performance together.
What do you say though? Like, so their response, I've gone this path, and they say, well, it's really hard. Policies that old are really hard to get in-force illustrations on. I want to hear you say it.
What?
Thank you.
I mean,
Right?
who says that?
All of the,
You
like,
call the life insurance carrier, you give them your producer number,
Yep.
and you say, I need the in-force illustration department, and I need you to run an in-force on Chris
Now-
Kirkpatrick,
now
policy number VF100972.
Now, in defense, where it may be hard for them is the companies that they sold with back then they've been fired from.
Yeah,
so they
that's
don't have
probably true.
access to it.
Well-
right, so that part is legit. But if you think about that, do you really want to be working with somebody? Do you want to be getting trained by somebody who's been fired from almost every company they've ever worked with?
I mean, look, if you've got 50 customers out there and you've been removed as the insurance producer, I think the fundamental question you've got to ask yourself is, do I want to walk down this path with this guy? Do I want to end up like that? Because again, 100%. I tell people all the time, I mean, look, my son's a life insurance agent.
Yeah.
He's securities licensed.
Yeah.
He works at an RIA.
Yeah.
When he was doing his program to sell life insurance, guess who he sold to?
His friends and family.
His friends and family. So he had to make sure he was doing it the right way, because you will not only light yourself on fire, you will light your relationships with friends and family members. And I have seen that. I have
That's
seen,
worse. Yeah.
because I have had, you know, it's not, when I get a retirement sale IUL, that agent has not done it once. He's usually done it 10, 15, 20 times.
Yeah.
And if he's done it the wrong way, which most of them do because that's how they're trained, they all blow up at once, and all the clients know each other. So when I bring one case, it turns into 10, 15, 20. I've got a guy here in South Carolina, I've sued him or his sons over 60 times. I've got 2 cases right now against him.
Wow.
And everyone, in fact, they've been run out of South Carolina. They're now down in Florida. because
you go after 'em there, too.
they couldn't show their face anymore. I mean,
Right.
everywhere they went, someone
Yeah.
would come up screaming to them, "You lost my retirement money. What am I supposed to do?" And I think that is, look, there's the old, the Glenn Fry song, "Smuggler's Blues," the lure of easy money.
Totally.
And I think that's what traps a lot of these folks into the IUL game is the comp structure is super incentivizing. And I think, you are also, I call it's hopium, right? It's the hope game.
Hopium, nice. That's a good one.
And I think what happens is they sell one, and I've seen this happen a lot.
Totally.
I mean, my typical model is a lot of my bigger IUL cases are a guy sells one to a high net worth individual.
And then it's game on.
And he gets the commission, and guess what happens in year 2? Chris, this one's working so well, let's buy a second one.
Gosh.
I have a dozen cases like that.
Jeez.
And I think they get lured into that commission structure, and they look at the illustrations, and they just hope to God this works. And they're seeing the same things that we see. They're seeing the annual statements, they're seeing the quarterly
Or
statements.
they're not.
Or
they're
they're
not
not
looking
Like
at
if
them.
you're an agent, you have an obligation and a duty year over year
Totally.
to look at it and understand it.
Yep.
Not only look at it,
But understand it, and
it.
then meet with your clients and
and
communicate
meet with the
it.
client and talk about it and
Yeah.
stress test, get an in-force illustration, build in some
Every
zero
year.
crediting years,
Yep.
build in some lower basis point index credits.
Yep.
And if they're going to take policy loans, I think you have an obligation to do that. And if you sell an IUL where you have just created a linear, 5.9 or 6.02 or whatever the highest percentage you're allowed to illustrate is at the given time, and you've not built in any variations in spread out to, of course,
Right.
year 120,
Right.
it's a recipe for disaster. And somebody like me is going to come along, because I guarantee you I will know more about the product you sold than you did.
Totally.
And I will make you look like a fool in a deposition.
And then you might lose your license. And
Bad things happen.
Bad things happen.
I've had
E&O
agents who've had to
claims.
declare bankruptcy. They think they have E&O coverage and they've done something stupid, like they sold premium finance with it, and a lot of policies have an exclusion. And you go look at your E&O policy; it probably excludes premium finance.
It's actually surprising insurance companies will let them sell premium finance without
That is
vetting
a great
the
question.
E&O.
There's-
Why are the insurance companies not then liable? Like, because,
Well, I say that they are.
okay,
And I always sue the insurance company in these cases because
Okay.
they are an agent
Totally.
of the insurance company, because everything they are doing is furtherance of sale of that IUL. So the insurance carrier is bound by the good and the bad.
yeah.
And so when you are misrepresenting how the product works or how it will perform in furtherance of the sale of the mothership is responsible.
Interesting.
And
So-
remember, there's a massive financial underwriting division in each IUL carrier. They're supposed to look
Massive.
at this.
Yeah, there's suitability, there's all sorts of,
And I have applications all the time where the agents or the IMO create fictitious income streams to get around the financial underwriting guidelines.
you were showing me one earlier where
Yeah.
like they lied on income on the application, they lied
Completely
on, they
made
lied
it
on
up.
the occupation, they lied on everything.
Oh,
like net worth.
I have retirees that magically become employed by the time the application gets to the carrier.
Unbelievable.
And are making, mystery dollars of $90,000, $100,000 a year when they are literally retired and not making any income other than what's in their qualified account, which the agent has recommended a reposition of. And that is really, like, if you're working for an IMO that says you should convince 60-plus-year-olds
yeah.
to move qualified money into an IUL, you are asking for pain.
I remember one time, it was October 23. I went to a World Financial Group training, like event, we'll call it, right? It was like 600-700 people there. It was a big event in Houston, Texas, and Doug Andrew was speaking. He was training,
Yeah.
right? And what's interesting to me is that the whole World Financial Group sales pitch, their slide deck, that
Yeah.
like if I were an agent and sit down with you, I would pull out my iPad,
Mm-hmm.
and I would walk you through this process and
Yeah.
educate you on financial literacy and all these things, and
Right.
teach you some basic terms and concepts, and ultimately it all gears towards why IUL is the best tool that you've never heard of and why you need to get it.
Secret of the wealthy.
Secret of the Wealthy, and this all stems from training from Doug Andrew, right? Like it all is derived from the head of the beast, which in my
Yeah.
opinion is him. and so like all of this comes back to retirement advice, and they're all talking about things that they're not registered to talk about, that they're not legally allowed to talk about.
Correct.
And so if you are doing this, you're like, I don't understand how WFG hasn't gotten in trouble for that yet. I don't understand how they all get away with that from like an FTC perspective, from a...
It's just the regulatory environment right now is overwhelmed,
Okay.
and they don't have the resources or ability to even go after those kind of things.
Okay, so go deeper on that, because a lot of people, that's another comment that I get from agents who've been doing it for 3 years and they still
Yeah.
believe. And it's a challenge because agents that have been doing this for a short period of time,
Yeah.
that they haven't seen a lot of the things blow up yet. And so
Sure.
naturally they're seeking confirmation bias, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I want this to work. I kind of need this to work, right? It's working
Right.
for me. I'm making money. It's providing for my family. I don't want to hurt other people.
Yeah.
So rather, that people are trying to do the right thing, but rather than try to prove themselves wrong, they're trying
Or
to,
if this were so bad, Pacific Life or Minnesota Life or Allianz
Exactly.
or National Life or Nationwide or Mutual of Omaha or Transamerica, they wouldn't allow me to sell
they
it
wouldn't
like
allow me
this.
to sell it. And then even if they were, take it to the next level, regulators would shut them down,
Correct.
right? So can
Correct.
you talk about why,
Yeah.
like, that's not happening?
First of all, insurance is regulated state by state by state. So
Okay.
there's 50 insurance commissioners and one for each state.
Yeah.
And they have to manage everything about insurance in that state. That is from car insurance to liquor liability to property and casualty, hurricanes, storms, fires. So think about just watch the news tonight. I'm sure there's going to be, we're in the height of summer, there's going to be a tornado somewhere, right?
Yep.
Which means there's going to be insurance claims that will be denied. There will be hundreds of customers calling a Department of Insurance making complaints.
Totally.
Then they get a complaint about something called an Index Universal Life that was sold to me for retirement.
And somebody lost 30 grand in it.
And they're
gonna
like,
be
you lost 30 grand. And somebody will read it and they'll go, man, I need to look into this.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll get around to it in 3 or 4 years.
Wow. Does it really sit on the shelf for that long?
Oh yeah, I think they all sit on the shelf. I mean, there's only, I will tell you, having done this work now for 8 years across, I think we've litigated in 30 plus states. The state of Washington's the only one that I know that has issued an order related to Index Universal Life only against Curtis Ray, because they were straight up, openly selling it as an investment, which you cannot sell an a life insurance product as an investment.
You would say they're open, but wouldn't you say Doug does that and his group does that because they position it?
Well, they don't use on YouTube and sales material. They don't use the word investment.
Right, but they're
They're-
telling people to strategically roll out of their IRA into an IUL.
Correct.
If that's not,
I think that's securities advice. I mean, securities advice is 3 things. One of 3 things.
yeah,
Buy, sell, hold a security. Like if you said, I love my iPhone, I love Apple, I own a ton of Apple stock. And I said, Chris, you should really sell that Apple stock because, Trump is making a Trump phone right now. He's gonna,
Nice.
I think the market is gonna react and Apple stock gonna go down 30%.
yeah,
I just gave you securities advice. I just did. I told you to sell a security.
sure.
So if I'm an insurance agent and I say, Chris, you got this money in this 401k, and I love this line because I have it on video from so many, but you've got a partner in your pocket, and that partner is Uncle Sam.
Government.
The government's going to take
Yeah.
his taxes out when you take your required minimum distributions. What if they're away under the magic of 7702 and 72E? If we were to reposition that, and through the magic of indexed loans, pay the government, not out of pocket, just out of, out of the policy, never lose any money,
Yep.
and it's going to continue to grow, max funded, properly structured, and we're going to turn that into Guaranteed tax-free income for life. Oh, and on top of that, by the
get some
way,
life insurance.
you get some life insurance.
Nice. And
Oh my
living
God!
benefits.
And
And
a
like-
living benefit that
Yeah.
you can take 90. I hear this all the time. You can take 90% of the. It doesn't work. It's only if you're terminally ill or if you have these catastrophic health events. And let me tell you something. When you try and do that, you want to see an insurance company pull out the big guns. You try and exercise that, and they will send you 300 denial letters about how you won't be able to access that. That's a big, big trick in the insurance industry because they don't want to lose that cash because it's in the general fund.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, we could talk for days about the misrepresentations that surround the retirement sale of an IUL. And I have been doing this now for 8 years, and I've asked over and over, if someone has one that works, show it to me.
And to be fair, when we say what you're talking about, what we're talking about is IULs are not bad. They're just misrepresented.
No.
They're miscategorized.
Yes.
They're bad for retirement planning. They're bad for cash accumulation. They're bad for real estate investing. They're bad for anything except for utilizing it, which is, by the way, is funny to me because I've had agents like get on my content. Like this Viking financial guy basically told me I was batshit crazy because he's like, man, because I said in a video, the only thing IUL works for is estate planning with guaranteed insurability riders.
Right.
And he's like, you're an idiot. Like you're losing. And I'm like, well, it's literally the only way that it's been proven that they actually can work.
That is about the only way that theoretically they would work.
Right.
And I've asked, trust me, I've asked some of the smartest mathematical actuarial minds in the country about it. And
mathematicians, actuarial minds, and you've deposed these, you've had them as witnesses, you've done,
look,
like,
I tell this
at a
story
high
all the
level.
time. When I got my first IUL case in 2018, I didn't understand it.
Right.
And I had litigated significant securities cases against the biggest broker-dealers in the country.
Yeah.
I thought of myself as a really smart securities litigator.
Sure.
I'd seen a lot of product. I'd sued a lot of financial advisors, broker-dealers. I'd done municipal bond work, which is a whole nother level of securities. I mean, I understand the bond market.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand options trading.
Yep.
I did not understand IULs. And it took me a long time. I remember it was the first policy I ever read was a Minnesota Life Eclipse policy. And I literally took, it was like 126 pages long. And I had to tape pages of it to my wall because you would be on
like
one
a beautiful
page
mind all over the
and you'd
place.
have to go to like this page to put two things together to understand.
Did you draw like
what an
use
index
yarn to
credit,
go from one to the other with like pins and all that?
And I honestly, I had done so much securities work by this time. I had lots of experts, and cultivated. And I called them all and I'm like, I need you to explain this IUL to me. And none of them ever heard of one. They'd never seen one.
Right.
Because again, they're new. This is 2018. They were just having some age on them. They were just blowing up. And I found a case. It wasn't about a retirement sale. There was a case involving a synthetic index.
Okay.
And someone had
What I would call an engineered index.
an engineered index,
Yep.
a
They call them
made-up
different.
index.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
A created
look,
index.
Financial guys and gals, they like to use fancy words. They love to say arbitrage and alpha and gamma and beta. and
totally.
Oh, it's a synthetic index means somebody made something up.
Yeah,
I mean, they created
enough.
it.
Fair
They
enough.
created it. They created it in a lab.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not real. Like I can't go buy. I can't call my financial advisor and say, hey, I want to put $2,000 in the Barclay Dynamic Index 2.
So I want to say, it's not that it's not real. They created it, and it's only real for this.
It's only real for that product.
Right. They created it for this product.
Yeah, so I can't actually go back and say, all right, what did it really return in 1987?
Right.
The S&P 500, I can do that.
Of course.
I can look and see what it returned on a day.
And on that point, when you do these engineered or synthetic indexes,
Yeah.
they can create them in such a way that makes them look, they can manufacture whatever back test they want because they just created it.
Yeah, I can do that
Like,
too.
Of course.
Like I run all the time in these cases, I'll run what's called a well-managed damages hypothetical portfolio. Like, had you put that money either yearly or monthly into this thing other than an IUL, what would it be today?
I talked to somebody that did this with an IUL.
Yeah.
I don't know if we gave you this case or not, but we should probably talk about it if we didn't. But he literally had all his money in NVIDIA. All his money was in NVIDIA when it was like $40 a share.
Oh my God.
And sold it all to fund $800,000 into an IUL.
I would drive my car off a cliff.
And like crazy.
No,
now
we should talk about that.
Like,
But
yeah.
let me finish. So I find this one case. It's the one case I could find where there was some IUL litigation in 2018.
Okay.
But it was about the index and how the cost of insurance. It was very complicated.
Okay.
And the expert in that case was a mathematician at the University of Texas.
Okay.
So I called him and said, "You've written this report.
Okay.
This is what I'm doing. Can I come see you? Can I hire you to teach me everything you know about index universal life?" He said, "Sure, come on."
Okay.
So I spent 2 days in Austin. Turns out the dude is a literal rocket scientist.
I want to meet this guy.
Like rocket scientist, design rockets for NASA.
Amazing.
And we spent 2 days walking through the mechanics of how it all worked.
Yeah.
And at the end, I looked at him and said, "So basically what you're telling me is there is no way that any, what I call the retirement sale, a fixed amount of premiums paid and then a hard stop,
Right.
followed by or in conjunction with policy loans,
Right.
and never anticipating another premium payment."
Right.
I said, 10 out of 10 times, that will not work. And he thought for a long time and he said, "I can't see how it would ever work." And that's when I knew. I was like, all right, I'm
This
on
is
to something.
Yeah.
Because my theory in those cases, this was the FIP Ponzi scheme. I'd forgotten about the Ponzi at that point. And I was like, wait, all of these IULs that were sold, eventually they're going to blow up. They they came to me accelerated because their parking lot collapsed.
Sure. Yep.
And he said, he confirmed that. He said, yeah, that is correct. There's no way you can pay 3 or 4 or 5 years of premium payments and then take out 25 years of policy loans. It just mathematically,
Kind of like use some common sense.
it just won't work.
Right.
But people see it on these big name insurance carriers illustration
And they trust it.
software, and they trust it and they believe it. And the sales agents have drank the Kool-Aid too, I think, to a certain point.
Oh.
Where either they
100%.
believe it or they want to believe it.
Yeah.
Some of them straight up know it's not going to work, but they don't care because they're making so much money.
Totally. Wow.
And so I think, I do this a lot. I mean, this is what I do for a living now. I sue IUL agents, and I sue IMOs,
companies.
and I sue
And IMOs,
carriers.
yeah.
And it's a big part of our litigation all over the country. But I do a lot of education like this. So I'm glad we're talking is, I hope that somebody, I've actually had people call me after we did our last YouTube. And they said, look, I was actually being sold an IUL. I did a Google. I found you. I'm like, hey, I know Robert. I listened to it. I didn't buy it. I'm like, that's fantastic.
It's perfect.
Wonderful.
I had a guy offer me a free trip to his place in Costa Rica for 2 weeks because he watched one of my videos and he reached out to me. He's like, I was about to spend $500,000 a year in an IUL and you just saved me.
Yeah,
And so-
I saved a guy $10 million that
That's
called
nuts.
me. He said, I sold a business. I met this guy down in Florida who held himself out as this financial guru, at the big fancy country club, drove the big fancy car, lived in the big fancy house.
Yep.
He was about to convince me to put 10 years, $1 million a year into an IUL. And I saw your video and I'm like, we know each other. He called me. He's like, can you look at this? And we ran some Monte Carlos on it and showed him and like, dude, it ain't gonna work. It's just not gonna work.
It's crazy. Well,
Didn't even make a fee on it.
no, exactly, right? So guys, obviously this video, it's been on my heart to like just take this exposing of Live Abundant and all their information in the channel just to a different level. Obviously, I've shared my opinion an abundant amount of times, but I wanted to get Robert on here to talk about it because he's had direct engagement with it, and it's been a real thing over the past 7 years. And what's been relieving to me is to know that you're still out there and you got this pending stuff, and because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean because you were showing me stuff that was 7 years old. 5 years old.
these cases,
like these cases that are still pending. So people are like, well, wouldn't he have gotten in trouble already? And it's like,
They're still pending.
They're pending, right? And so
And
it's like
that's the problem with litigation is sometimes I say, you know, the wheels of justice move real slow, man.
Yeah.
They move, and in this case, we're all in a big. They are too. They're in a big fight with their E&O carrier, who is saying because of the way you sold these, we're not going to cover any of these claims.
ooh, so they might be personally liable? Is
Yes.
that how it could potentially come down?
Yeah, that's the problem. Is because they
Wow.
have so many other hands in those pockets, you know, through the
Wow.
receiverships and the
Interesting.
SEC and other issues that, you know, without the insurance coverage, some of
Yeah.
our folks may be out of luck.
Yeah. So I'll say this is like if you're an agent and my guess is you got into the business because you wanted to help people. If you're really looking for education, I would say just reach out. I'm happy to help guide you in that way. If you're a client of anybody mentioned, any of the organizations, any of the companies, or if you just have an IUL in general, I would suggest whether you feel like you're in a good spot or not, I would say go to investorlawcenter.com and just check in with Robert. Just get in with his team. They'll give you some insight as to where you are. I just truly believe nobody should put their money into anything they don't understand. What I found really funny, am I allowed to say this? I'll clip it out if I'm not allowed to say it. But when you were deposing Doug,
Yeah.
and you were asking him how much he understands about, and like, because he speaks super confidently when
Oh,
he's
yeah,
talking on
yeah.
YouTube, but when you asked him to really describe it on the record, he kind of clammed up.
Well, it's like every, you know, the issue that all these guys have is they don't understand how the index crediting works.
Right.
They don't understand.
Even when they talk about it, like they think they got it dialed
Right.
in,
They don't
right?
really understand it because
Right.
it's really complicated. Unless
Totally.
you have a deep understanding of the bond markets in conjunction with
Totally.
options trading,
Totally.
you will not understand it.
Totally.
And I've not met one yet that could explain it to me.
So I would say this, just if you have an IUL, reach out to him. If you're an agent and you're selling them, if you have questions, if you've sold them and you're wanting to help people and do the right thing, reach out. I'll put links in the description below. Also going to link to Robert's channel. He's launching, or you have a channel, you've had it.
Yeah, I think, well, we're retooling a few things.
Yeah, so talk about that for 1 second.
Yeah, so, you know, my law firm is Riker Pappas, which is a full service law firm, litigate all kinds of cases. Catastrophic injuries, medical malpractice, nursing homes, securities of all kinds. Insurance bad faith is a big part of our practice.
Okay.
But we're doing something different with the IUL litigation because we really are the only law firm in the country that does it at scale. We're actually setting up a standalone law firm, which will be RP Legal, you know, Riker Pappas. But just to know,
Initialized.
yeah, that is going to be the national index universal life litigation platform. And I'm in the process right now of building out that team. I mean,
Nice.
it's going to be a multi-state, big team that we will be able to take on
And
the biggest IMOs, the biggest carriers, the biggest agent groups
I
in the
love it.
country.
the way I look at that is he wouldn't be doing that if there wasn't a need to be doing it, because it's costing you a ton of money, a ton of time, a ton of stress
Yeah, this is not
to
a,
go down that path.
This is not a pro bono
Right,
endeavor. I mean,
right.
it's just, I'd love to be able to do that, but it's just not. I mean,
Well, right,
I have to run you've seen all the people here. I have
totally,
to
like this, your operation's amazing.
pay salaries and
Yeah.
401ks.
Totally, totally.
No
So-
IULs.
Right, no IULs
No,
as an executive
No
bonus?
IULs.
No, no? Oh, okay.
no. Although I have heard that
Yeah.
there's somebody out there selling those like that.
Something says there are. So make sure, if you have any questions, any comments, if there's something that you want us to go deeper on from a topic perspective, Robert and I are going to be doing a series, regular scheduled videos where we're going to be going through this. So leave a comment in the comment section. I'll do my best to engage with every single comment. If you have questions, like we will utilize this information to try to answer your questions. We want these conversations to really be value adding to the industry, to like we both want to make this impact in the IUL space and like really expose it for what it is, but really the mission is to like to protect people, to save people, to whatever.
Yes.
You know, that's really what it's all about. That's one of the things that really attracted me to want to work with him is it wasn't just like, hey, how much money can I make in this? It was like, I want to end my career by making an impact in this industry because
Yes.
it needs it, you know, and that's what really connected with me. And so that's why, you know.
Well, and that's why I want to do this series with you over
Yeah.
the next few weeks, months, however long,
Yeah.
because I've talked to you about this. My biggest problem, like I just explained, when I got into this, I could not find anything that actually talked about the mechanics of how what these products are, and how they function in the real world, and how they operate. All I could find were sales videos of how to sell them and how great they are. And it took me a long time, and still to this day, I mean, the marketplace has exploded. If you search, you're going to be bombarded with ads of how great it is.
It's hard, even to the point where when you go to ChatGPT, like ChatGPT will even say that they're positive because all it's doing is amalgamating all the information online, and there's such an overwhelming amount of just sales content.
So much,
so much. It confuses even the AI.
Yeah, like, it's unbelievable, and that's why I want to.
Case study in how AI can't be dependable.
Definitely, but yeah, I just want to have some content out there that people can at least see a counter to the cheerleader, drink the Kool-Aid. These are the best things ever.
And it's a word of caution for people that are looking to do this and putting their relationships
and integrity
on the line.
For real. Putting your money on the line, put your relationships on the line, put in your work capital on the line. I mean, I can't stress enough, like, don't sell something you don't understand.
Amen. So, all right, guys. Thanks for everything. We'll talk to you on the next video. Thanks, man.